Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the history of video games. My name is Wes, and I am here with Ben. Ben, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Wes?
I'm doing pretty dang good myself, yeah. Do you want to start off today for telling us about what games you've been playing recently?
Sure. Have I can't even remember. It's been 2 weeks since we recorded last because of
Right.
Easter. Did I talk about RimWorld last time?
Yes, I believe you did.
Okay. So I've been playing a little bit more of that. Basically, I'm towards the end game now, which is where I stopped last time I was playing. And I stopped this time, but I do want to go back to it and finish it. But I started building the spaceship that eventually takes you off of the planet. But the resource count for what you need is just absolutely ridiculous. So it's weird how they do it because you need to get everybody off of the planet, and that means that the more people you have, paradoxically, like the more materials you need because they each need something.
Yeah.
It's a little annoying. I'm literally just kind of like waiting around for things to research or for things to be mined. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. But it's okay. I'm still enjoying it. I want to get back to it. The other thing I've been doing is I think I mentioned, oh yeah, I definitely mentioned this last time because I mentioned I was maybe thinking about making my own game,
Right, yeah.
kind of in the RimWorld style.
Mhm.
And I sat down, I was about to do that, and I was like, wait a minute, I've got 2 other projects that I started making. Maybe I should work on them first. So I started working on my card game again. I don't know if you remember this. This was so long ago.
Yes, I do.
But I was working on it with our mutual friend Joe, and what did I do? I made it so that at the end of the turn, your hand goes to the discard pile because it's kind of a deck building game, right?
Right.
So I implemented that, and then that got like my friend Joe into it, and then he's been just working crazy hours on it, and I'm just like trying to keep up. And just this weekend, he basically wanted me to spend the weekend making like diagrams and writing out the rules in text files.
Oh,
Which
yeah,
is
okay.
really smart, but a lot of it was just in my head, and I was like, wait a minute, if this situation does occur, what happens? And so it was really fun, but it took a while, and the game's looking better and better every day, so it's really exciting because I don't know, I'll just wake up and I'll see that like Joe did something, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is the game going to look like when I download it next? So
Yeah, oh, that's awesome.
yeah, so it's really exciting stuff, but it's got my hands full. I've got too many projects. I also published a YouTube video.
Right.
So, I've been busy. But what have you been up to?
Well, I'll mention when I have a little bit more to say about it, but me and 2 of my friends have started the conversation of making a game and
Oh yeah.
started putting together a like Trello board to organize like tasks and stuff like that. Me and one of my other friends being from like a sort of business-y background, we're trying to like throw some project management in there, so we'll see how that goes.
Right. Yeah, I'm like terrible with that, but luckily Joe's like all about that, so
Right, yeah.
it kind of worked out.
Yeah, you definitely got to have someone like that on the team, or
Yeah.
just because otherwise all these brilliant ideas are getting lost to the ether. But like I said, I'll give more of an update on that once I have a little more to say. But I wanted to talk about the game I've been playing recently, which is this gigantic, expansive mod for the Stalker series of games, which I don't think I've talked about before. They're like an older series of games, like mid 2000s when they came out. And Stalker is an acronym that stands for something dumb. It sounds like they kind of just like the sound of the word stalker and then made it an acronym.
Right.
Because it's like supposed to be the type of people that are in like this lawless wasteland, and it's like survivors, loners. I forget what the T even is, and it's like robbers, and it's like, what is, I don't know. But either way, it's set in like this fantasy version of post Chernobyl disaster, Chernobyl and the surrounding
This
areas.
is like totally your game.
Yes.
Already.
And that's and so that's what I was going to say. I don't know if I talked about it. We always talk about how much I love space games, but like the genre where like you could basically just make any game in this genre and I'd be like, hell yeah, I'll check that out. It's just post-apocalyptic, like post-nuclear apocalypse, and there's mutants everywhere. That's so much up my alley. So that's the main universe for Stalker. You're sort of like surviving. There is a main story, and there were 3 games for it, 2 of which I'd played. But what this mod does is it adds a new story to kind of give you a goal, although it is a pretty open world-ish type game. And it combines all of the area maps that are in all 3 of the games, along with some original ones. So it's basically just giving you this huge playground for anyone who likes this like very niche Stalker game. And it is super good. I'm just dumping hours and hours into this. It's a free mod, of course. So I'm like, anytime that I'm enjoying playing it is like free real estate, you know? They've added tons of guns and gun modifications. It's got that hardcore vibe where it's like you shoot your gun like 30 times for an assault rifle, and it's like, well, it's degraded 6%, so you better repair it before it gets below 90% efficiency, and then it jams every now and then and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And navigating all the horrifying mutants that they have in the game, the worst of which is these ones that can create hallucinations of themselves that sprint towards you, but then they turn invisible and run around behind you.
That sounds cool.
It's really cool, yeah. So it's a really fun game. It's very unforgiving. Like those mutants will hit you like once, and if you don't have good armor, you're just kind of like dead right off the bat. So there's a lot of save loading, but as I've mentioned with previous games, I don't really mind that. I am a frequent save every 5 minutes and then load up the save if the situation didn't go the way I wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I've just been loving it. And the main story, I mean, it's interesting, and also it's like just enough of a guideline to make you explore all of the areas that they've put into this mod, which is really all it needs to be in that type of game. It's just like, here's your motivation to go to the next place, and it's very cool. So yeah,
What are the graphics on that game? Because I think I'm confusing it with Crisis of what it looks like.
Oh yeah, so the graphics are pretty bad.
Okay.
It's got like this, I don't know, they're really tuned up in the Anomaly mod, which I didn't even say the name of the mod. I just said it was an expansive mod. It's called Stalker Anomaly. You can get it on ModDB for free. So they tuned up the graphics in that, but it's the same engine. And like, it looks fine, but it looks like an engine from like 2006. So,
Gotcha. Okay.
Which I mean, CryEngine's pretty old too, but that was designed to be like,
yeah,
you know, peak performance. Whereas this is like, you know, it's all right.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll have to look up some pictures of it because the visual style I feel like is also off-putting to some people.
Okay. Yeah, I've never played those games, so I'm just remembering them wrong.
It seems like a cult classic kind of thing. You know, I don't know if a lot of people really remember it. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've been up to. Do you think we should start talking about our special topic for the day?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about the Compucolor II, which I'm probably mispronouncing.
Yeah, I would say Compu, but I mean, it's, who knows?
It could just be Compucolor. I don't know. That doesn't feel right.
It does not.
But we're going to be talking about some of the games for that system, and we've never really talked about this computer before. So, Wes, you want to get started on it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Compucolor, I guess that's how I'm going to choose to say it, was a series of computers that had built-in color graphics. It wasn't really a kit computer. It kind of came like with all the bits that you needed. And of course, some of them cost extra and stuff like that. But one of the big selling points of it is that it was pretty much pre-assembled. And these were created by a company called Intelligent Systems Corp. And they are out of Georgia, which, you know, just nice to know. It's weird to see something in Georgia when we feel like all these computer companies are either East or West Coast right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they will eventually create the Compucolor subsidiary, which is specifically designated to make these computers. When they originally started, Intelligent Systems Corp was originally just a maker of color terminals, and then probably saw that color computers was a good market and started going into that. So the Compucolor II was kind of the next generation after the first few that came out. It was a lot cheaper than the one that came out right before it, the Compucolor 8001, which used a 8-track tape deck. So it was already kind of getting a little bit out of date with that. But the Compucolor II was basically built out of the shell of a 13-inch General Electric color TV with the tuning knob section of the TV removed and a vertically mounted 5.25-inch floppy drive on the side of it, which is, it's so weird to think of a vertical floppy drive, but just sideways hanging on the side there. The computer itself was based off the Intel 8080 processor, like a lot of computers in this era, and it used a version of BASIC, which was called 8001 BASIC, but it was apparently very similar to Microsoft BASIC. And so the pricing for these, this is supposed to be a pretty cheap computer, but it was, for the cheapest model, $1,495. And that's getting you a whopping 8 kilobytes of RAM. So seems a little weird by today's standards.
Yeah, so that number, if we did it inflation for today's price, would be $6,000. So it's cheap for the time, but it's not cheap.
Yes, yeah, and that's the cheapest model too. The most expensive model was $2,395 for 32 kilobytes of RAM.
Dang.
So you're really paying for that color TV, I think. But apparently this was marketed in 1977, and by the time it started selling in mid-1978, the Apple II was already on the market, already being sold, and it was cheaper. So that's kind of why this one isn't really going to take off too much. But I did get to read a review from a computer magazine reviewing this computer when it came out, and they said it was super easy to assemble. It was basically already a working computer when it was delivered. The version of BASIC that was on it was easy to use and computed pretty fast, and that all of the colors on it were crisp and clear. According to this review at least, it seems like another issue of timing of release dates that we've seen a bunch. Apple II got theirs out faster, and who knows if it was even that much better than this, but as far as I know, the Compucolor II doesn't stay around for nearly as long as the Apple II.
Right. Yeah. I found actually how many were sold. I found a source that said approximately 2,000 were sold, which comparatively, I think the Commodore PET in 78 sold around 4,000, and the Apple II was higher, and the TRS-80 was in a different league with how much they were selling.
Right.
So it's pretty small, but I do think it was a pretty good seller for the company, for the size of the company. So I don't think that this drove them into bankruptcy or anything. But yeah, a couple just little tidbits I found about it that I thought was interesting is that at the time, this was, I think, the only computer system that had not only color graphics, but color text. And this is something I didn't even notice, but the Apple II has color graphics, but it does not have color text. And I never noticed that before, but it's true. We never played a game with color text on the Apple II, and I guess it can't do it. And on this one, everything could be in color, including the text, which was interesting. Something else I found a funny kind of warning. So apparently the manual advises that you shouldn't leave a disk in the disk drive while turning your Compucolor II on or off, because there's a magnetic field generated by the CRT display, which is just 3 inches from the floppy drive, and it can effectively destroy the data on the floppy disk. So you really don't want to turn it on with anything in there, I guess.
Yeah, you think by the point that you're having someone on your staff write that up in text, you're like, maybe there's a design flaw.
Yeah. They just needed to get it in the TV, though. I mean, what else was going to go there? I don't know. True. Also, it was sold with 3 different keyboards. You could buy 3 different keyboards for this computer, which I thought was interesting. You could buy one that was just the standard 72 keys, then one that was 101 keys, the expanded version, which I think added mainly the number pad. And then there was also a deluxe 117 key keyboard you could buy for this, which I think had almost commands on it, or I think stuff like copy, paste, save, load, run, or keys on the keyboard, which is interesting to me. But yeah, it's a little sad that we don't have a whole lot of games for this system, considering the fact that, honestly, I think the resolution's pretty good. and it's all color, including text, which is, again, probably the best computer out there right now, other than maybe the Video Brain? Question mark. I don't know. Um,
Yeah, it does look really good. And in their advertising material, they showed Star Trek on it, like basic Star Trek, one of the versions that we've seen before. And
mhm.
it's crazy how much that difference of just sort of every aspect of it having color makes it look really good.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with this. I'm hoping that in the future we'll find even more great games on it, but in 78 there's not too much. So why don't we take a short break, listen to some music, and then talk about those games? All right, welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed that piece of music. I think by now I should be working on piano music. I don't know.
Ooh.
You guys will know. But we're gonna start by hopping right into the Compucolor 2 packs. They kind of, or at least these ones came in kind of packs, so it was many games all sold together. The first pack here is called the Star Trek pack, and it had the game Star Trek, Lunar Lander, Shoot, which was kind of a math-based angle game, and Tic Tac Toe. And we could have like covered these and reviewed them, but honestly, we've already covered like all of these games before. And even though like something like Shoot is kind of cool because it has nice color graphics, it's still like just an angle game. So
Right. Yeah.
I didn't think we should cover them. Similarly, the next pack is the chess pack, and it had chess, AC Doocy, Lane 5, and Biorhythm. Again, like we've already covered like almost all these games, and that I didn't think that they were like that interesting. The last one is a little interesting. It's called Swarms, but this one, unfortunately, I couldn't get it running on the Compucolor emulator. So I don't really know much about it. We have covered Swarms in an honorable mention previously. It was in a one of our magazines, but it's some sort of like almost what's that pandemic game called? I forget.
Pandemic.
Yeah.
Isn't it called Pandemic?
Oh, is it called Pandemic?
The board
Okay,
game,
yeah.
yeah.
So it's kind of like the game Pandemic, I think, where like a swarm is starts small and then builds up like somewhere in the United States of America, and you kind of have to like quarantine it off, or I don't know. It's some sort of strategy game based on swarms, but
Interesting.
I couldn't get it running, so
It's too bad.
I think that's all the Compucolor we have for this year. So there are definitely other packs and maybe even other one-off games that we might cover later in the year, but those were the big ones, I think.
So next up, we have Creative Computing, the September and October issues. There was nothing really notable in June, July, and also doesn't look like there's anything notable in November, December. So this may
So
also
this is
be,
it.
yeah, the last that we're hearing from Creative Computing this year. Crazy to think we're already at that point. But this one just had two that we wanted to mention. The first one is Star Wars by Thomas Ronayne, another Star Wars game. But this one looks like it's just a text-based Star Trek style of game, but no maps or graphics at all for this.
And then the other one in that magazine was called Hex, which is kind of like a Connect Four or Tic Tac Toe kind of game. Basically, you had a bunch of hexagons built up to make a big hexagon, and you would like claim a piece of the smaller hexagons, just like you would kind of like putting a mark in for tic tac toe. But in this game, you basically had to make a line that went from one edge of the hexagon and somehow looped back around to that line. So there would be like you could loop around the screen wrap. So
Hmm.
I don't know. It was a weird kind of tic tac toe screen wrapped hexagon based game. But we couldn't play because it was just a magazine game.
And so now let's get into some arcade cabinets. And the first game that I got to review today, Atari Football, which is exactly how it sounds, Atari American Football. So this, as well as most of the games that we're talking about today, came out in October. And just a little bit of background on Atari Football. It actually was originally thought up in 1975 with the title X's and O's, and it was by Steve Bristow, but it kind of just went to the side when he worked on other games and eventually came back and was made for 78 when it releases now. And one of the most notable things about this cabinet is that it uses a trackball, which, if you don't know, is basically a way to control. A lot of times it's on trackpad mice that you can buy now, but it's just a spinning ball that kind of records the movement as the ball spins, and the direction you're spinning it directs where the mouse is going. Or in this case, you used it to control the players. And what was unique about it for this game is that since it kind of keeps momentum for a little bit and you can spin it really fast, the faster the user spins the ball, the faster the players in the game move. So every video of the actual cabinet where we were taking a look at this, it's just constant like hand meeting plastic spinning noises over and over because people are furiously trying to move their character faster than the other person. So that's great.
It's pretty violent.
It is. Yeah, I mean,
I'm surprised they're all not destroyed.
And apparently it was renowned for causing blisters too. Multiple people, when they were watching YouTube videos of them reviewing it, were like, oh yeah, and you got to be careful when you're playing because it'll give you blisters. So people went all out in this. The cabinet itself is a tabletop cabinet, sort of, where the two players are on opposite sides of the table, which ends up working out really nicely with a football field because you're basically like looking from the back of either end zone. One quarter got you 90 seconds of play, so it was a pretty quick game, but this had this feature, if you want to call it that, or money-making scheme, which I would probably call it, where if you added quarters while the game was still going, you got extra time. There might have also been like a moment where it paused and you could add to keep playing the same game. But either way, that 90 seconds, I feel like you're not going to get your fill of it in that time. So they knew that you were going to have to put multiple quarters in. The plays were selected using this special menu on the side that was totally separate from the trackball. So that was pretty cool. It kind of showed you a little display of the play and you could pick it. And this game is also credited with popularizing the trackball as a controller type in sports games, pretty specifically. Although there were other arcade cabinets that I think we've mentioned, maybe none that we've covered in depth, that did have a trackball. I think one of the credited ones was a soccer game from maybe Taito in 73 or something like that. But
yeah, that sounds right to me.
Yeah, so either way, we've seen it before, but this cabinet ended up being very popular, so it kind of popularized that controller type. It's also credited with being the first game to really accurately represent a sport. And because
what about baseball? You don't count that?
I don't know. Okay, well maybe football.
Yeah, maybe football.
We have seen some good baseball games that represent it pretty well. I think people were painting in broad strokes when they were doing these reviews. And we do mention this knowing that we reviewed football for the Ballyasturcade before this, but we don't know the exact release date of football for the Ballyasturcade, so it seems plausible that this one could have been before and could be the first one to really represent football well. And it is also credited, according to Wikipedia for this one, as the first non-racing game with scrolling graphics. But that one I don't believe because I kind of count Sky Raider as scrolling graphics, right? And that's a bombing game.
Yeah.
So
it's not the same kind of, but
it depends on your definition. So that one's a little loose because Sky Raider's a totally weird, unique type of display. It is not a racing game and it does have scrolling graphics, but either way, we'll say maybe this one. Either way, it's cool that it's a sports game with scrolling graphics. The cabinet itself just kind of has some nice splashes of color on it with some football players running around. Looks pretty cool, but nothing super crazy. So getting into the actual gameplay for this game, it pretty much, like we mentioned, plays a normal game of American football, and that's what's so cool about it. Offense can choose between 4 running plays or 4 passing plays, and defense can choose between 4 plays total. It's far as I could tell, there's no kicking plays except for maybe punting on the fourth down, but there's no field goals or anything like that in this. The only way to score is touchdowns. Once a play starts, the offense controls the QB and passes, and then if the receiver catches it, they then control the receiver. And this is where people really start going crazy with the trackballs because there's going to be a defense person right next to your receiver, usually. And the faster you move that trackball, the faster your character moves. And during this time, the defense controls whichever player is closest to the ball. So, just like typical football rules, there are 4 downs, there are first downs, there are turnovers, the QB can be sacked, there's passes that can be blocked or intercepted, although I'm not too sure if it's random or player action that differentiates whether it's blocked or intercepted. I didn't see any fumbles when I played or when I watched other people play. It's possible they're in there, but I'm not too sure. But that's just basically it gets most of what you would want out of a football game in it.
It's got blockers, which is like, to me, that's like a necessary part.
Right.
And they move like too, like they kind of
Yes.
go in and out.
And it even has the modern football design of like, all the players are moving on the screen and you're controlling one at a time. This one, it sort of like contextually changes who you're playing as instead of you getting to pick. But still, it's pretty cool. So let me get into my ratings for this. For graphics, I wanted to give it a high score because it looks so good, but then also recognize that it is in black and white, which sucks. So I ended up giving it a 3 out of 10. Obviously, the biggest negative is that the graphics are black and white, but honestly, it doesn't matter that much when the rest of the visuals are so good. The players are all X's and O's, which again, you would love to see actual sprites of people on there, but they're still very clear to see on the background, and they can move very quickly. And even when they're moving quickly, they move very smoothly. They're not jittering all over the screen, which is really impressive. So I really appreciated that fact, even if the X's and O's are a little boring. And when you're controlling a player, that symbol actually gets larger and consistently blinks. At first, I thought it was the refresh rate for the whole screen, but the other players stay solid, and it's just the one you're controlling that blinks. So they make it pretty easy to tell which character you're controlling, which is nice. The field itself is just light gray, nothing too good, although it does provide enough contrast that you can see the white X's and O's. And you can see the yard lines pretty clearly because they're white as well. And one of my favorite parts, even though it's such a tiny detail, is that there's actually like the numbers written for what each yard line is. So you don't need another display just to tell you like where you are. You can actually look on the field and it's like, oh, I'm on the 40-yard line. And it's very easy to gauge when you're getting close to the end zone, which is nice. The screen itself shows about, I want to say 30 yards at a time. And the best part visually about this, I think, is that the playfield scrolls. So unlike the Ballyast Arcade football, which, if I remember right, kind of updated every time that you move to the end of it, this one is just constantly updating, and it's super smooth, doesn't interrupt the play of the game at all. So it really helps with what I think football games do so well, which is making a long pass or a long running play feel really epic. Because when you have a loading screen in between like this, like 50-yard pass and then run or something like that, it's like kind of lose your momentum. But this, since the screen is constantly updating, I don't know, it just kind of keeps that exciting feel to it. The football also looks pretty decent. It is just a football floating in front of a O or an X, which is a little weird, but it does go like inside or overlaps with the player who catches it. And in the middle of the field, there's actually this nice like NFL-inspired Atari Football design, which I really like too. So overall, the graphics were pretty awesome for this. The sounds, though, in very stark contrast to the graphics, just feels super dated. Like it seems like they kept whatever 75 idea they had for these. It's just some beeps for when they hike the ball, a longer beep for when someone is tackled, and maybe like some illusion of a cheer noise for a touchdown. I couldn't tell if it actually happened or not, but it wasn't very notable if it did. No sounds really going on during the plays, which is a little weird, but also most of the time you see a video on a live cabinet for this, you can't hear anything over the furious clattering of the trackballs anyway, which I'm not going to count towards the sound score, but I do kind of like. It kind of gives it that like wall of noise, arcade cacophony feel, which, it's you either love it or hate it, but I kind of like that aspect about it. And then for gameplay, I gave it a 3 out of 10. It's just super fun. The play is just so smooth. There aren't tons of play options, but it still feels like there's enough that it keeps it interesting, and you don't always know what the other player is going to be doing, so you don't always know how to defend. And the real fun, I think, comes in when players running with the ball and both players just have to like smack the heck out of the trackball to move as fast as they can. Apparently, it hurts a lot too, as I was saying with the blisters. So I don't know if that made the gameplay not enjoyable, but it does seem hilarious and fun how much of like a frenetic experience it is. And it's just kind of what I want out of an arcade sometimes. Like you're yelling at your friend back and forth and having a crazy time, like, oh, no, 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 he's going to get it, and all that kind of stuff. It just seems like it really creates that atmosphere super easily. It does seem like there's an okay amount of strategy, even with the limited amount of plays, so I like that. And since you can sack the QB, there's kind of tension throughout the whole play instead of something where it's just waiting till someone catches a pass and then the action starts. And it just feels like a good, simple football video game, which is really nice. It represents it so accurately and it runs so smoothly, which is a huge bonus. So then for relevance, I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. It is likely one of the first real video game interpretations of football that like just kind of gets it right. It plays just like American football. It has this weird, unique controller. It apparently popularized the use of the trackball and sold really well. And in '79, it'll apparently also become one of the top-selling cabinets. So I just feel like it's this weird sort of understated game, but it really is a huge step forward for sports video games. So I feel like I had to give it a lot of relevance there. And overall, that left me with a 3.5 out of 10. It's just super fun, has unique controls, runs really smoothly. The only drawbacks that I would like to see improved is like sprites for the players, better sounds, and color graphics. But other than that, it's just super solid arcade game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was really impressed with it. Although at the same time, it does put in perspective just how good the Astrocade version was too, because that one was in color and did have real sprites. So I was like, oh man,
right? And
that one was so good too.
The fact that we're comparing it to when the Astrocade is a home console and this is a arcade cabinet, both in '78, it's like the Astrocade is doing some crazy stuff.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah. I know you're not like the biggest sports guy, so I'm glad you enjoyed that one.
Yes, I'll tell you, the smoothness of the scrolling saved it for me. I probably would have been pretty disgruntled if it didn't update very quickly.
Right. Yeah, the Astrocade one, it loads, but it's really fast. But it's not as good as the scrolling for sure. So
right.
All right, cool. All right, let's move into the first one that I did today, and this one's another kind of big one. It's GB by Namco, which came out in October of 1978, and this is like Namco's like first real game. I mean, up until this point, they had done some electromechanical stuff. They, I think, cloned Space Invaders already at this point, but they didn't do anything original, and this is their first original game. Although the idea has been done before. So the basics of GB is it's one of these pinball games that's also Pong or Breakout. We've seen these before. We've covered these. But this one, since it's the first like real Namco game, we're going to cover again. And it is kind of a cooler one, I'd say. Just the visuals of it are pretty interesting. So on this one, again, it's kind of set up like a pinball table, but instead of bumpers at the bottom, you've got a paddle at the bottom, and then in this one you also have a paddle kind of in the middle of the screen, and the two move together. So it's kind of you kind of got a two paddle setup here. And then the actual board, I think this is done on purpose. The board looks like a person's face. So you've got these two big bumpers right in the middle, and they're white, so they're like eyes. You then have a flipper kind of thing in the direct middle, which I think is supposed to be the nose, and then a vertical barrier below that, which I think is supposed to be the mouth. And then all around the sides of the head are bricks. So you can break those. And there's also two little pockets down further towards the sides and the bottom of the screen where there's special like bricks in there. They're really hard to get. You can only get up in there if you hit it off the lower of the two paddles. So there's that kind of section too. And then you also have towards the bottom Namco written out in kind of blocky letters, and if the ball goes over any one of those letters, it'll light up, which is definitely a pinball thing. And basically, you're kind of playing Breakout, but you're also kind of playing pinball. It's a kind of cool interpretation of it, especially because all three sides of the edge at the top are all bricks. And what's also cool is once you clear all the bricks in each of those sections, they will replenish. So you can keep playing the game.
Nice.
And I think you can play until you lose 3 balls, which is actually really easy to do because I was playing and just like in normal Breakout, the ball will get faster and faster and faster the longer you hit it. I've seen some other people play it and it doesn't seem to get as fast as when I played it, so I don't know if there's a way to reset the speed, but I thought it was pretty difficult when I played it. And that's kind of the general gist of what the game is. The game itself has a lot of color overlays on it, so it's not in true color, but there's probably, I don't know, like probably close to 10 colors for the color overlays. Mainly kind of darker blues and purples. So it's got a really unique look to it that I actually really like. And it also means that the ball changes colors all the time because it's going under all these overlays. But it's cool. The actual arcade cabinet for this was bee themed, like the creature bee.
Oh, okay.
And I have no idea why. The face on like when you're playing the game doesn't look like a bee. So I don't know why, and like on the side of the cabinet, it's like a cartoon bee character doing like a falcon punch. I don't understand what's going on there, but yeah, the cabinet is not one of my favorites. But the face that you're actually like playing, that is the play field, it's more of a robot looking face that I quite enjoy. So let me get into my ratings here. Let's start out with graphics. Like I mentioned, you have a lot of color overlays, but then it's just kind of Pong and Breakout. Something I really like a lot though, this is I think the first game I've ever seen this in, is that you've got this kind of flipper thing in the middle, which is the nose of the robot. And if the Pong ball goes up in there, it'll actually kind of like do this weird like rotating animation as if there was like a almost like a door kind of like swinging, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And the ball went through there and it pushed the door up and now it's swinging back and forth until it goes back down to nothing. And it'll actually swing more or less depending on how fast the ball goes when it goes through there, which is pretty crazy to me. That's the only thing that like moves on the whole play field. You've got bumpers, but I don't think that they really move, or they do move a little bit. When I say bumpers, I mean like kind of that round thing that like really catapults the ball off when you hit it.
Yeah.
They do kind of get a little bigger for a second if the ball bounces off, but I think it's a pretty minimal effect. I didn't really notice it that much when I was playing. But that's the only thing that like really moves. Otherwise, you know, it's just 2 Pong paddles, the ball, which is definitely a square. And then the bricks just disappear when you hit them. But, you know, that's like normal Breakout. At least you have the cool swinging doorway thing, which I think is really, really cool. And I've not seen that before. So for graphics, I gave it a 2.25 out of 10. It was like pretty good, but it wasn't anything revolutionary. And there's something else that, like when I was watching other people play this, they haven't seen all the ones that we've already covered of this exact type of gameplay, and it has been quite a few.
Right.
I was looking it up, and I mean, all the way back in '75, I covered Super Flipper, which was basically this exact game. And that one didn't have color overlays, but the cover overlays don't do that much, to help. So I don't know. Maybe I was a little harsh on it, but I didn't give it too high. For sound, that's another one that I was like a little bummed by. It's mainly like kind of pongy sounds, although they do have one or two unique ones in there. And because of the speed of the ball and the fact that anytime the ball touches any of the walls, you're essentially breaking a brick, you do get a fair amount of sounds the whole time. It's not one of those pinball games where it's just completely dead silent for the majority of the
Right.
game, and that is really good. But I still feel like I need some more like things that kind of ring or aren't just like immediate blips and bloops. The only thing that's remotely like that is the doorway flipper thing. As it's spinning, it's always kind of making a sound. But realistically, like the doorway is kind of in this part of the screen where you don't hit it very often. So it's cool when you hit it, but for the most part, you're just listening to a lot of breakout pong beeps. And I don't know. I went back again to Super Flipper. That one had some, I think, electromechanical noises that were a lot more closely related to pinball, and to be honest, they sounded a lot better. So I gave it a 1.5 out of 10. Again, it's just basic Pong sounds, but you do have that one or two unique sound in there. All right, for gameplay, this is the highest score for me. I gave it a 2.75 out of 10. It kind of combines pinball and breakout, and I do like breakout. We have seen it quite a lot now. It's a concept over 2 years old, but I don't think we've seen breakout and pinball in this way before. Most of these games, it's just like a pong paddle and a pong ball, and it's just hitting off of bumpers and stuff, and you're not really like trying to go for bricks in the same way. And there's just something about bricks and trying to clear the whole row, which is just satisfying. I don't know. So I do like this game. I think it's a fun game. It's just not as original as maybe other people might think it is. And we've covered games very similar to it a lot. So maybe I'm just kind of getting sick of this kind of game. But I think this is one of the better versions of this thing. And pinball and breakout is a much better combination than pinball and pong, believe me.
For sure.
It's definitely not a bad game, and I enjoyed myself. I just probably wouldn't play it more than one or two games, which I did play a couple games, but that's mainly because I was really bad and lost the ball like really quick. So that left me with a relevant score. Now this one, again, it was a little hard. I had to go kind of high though, because it's the first ever like real Namco game. And for those of you who don't know, Namco is going to be like one of the biggest companies ever. They come out with Galaxian, they come out with Pac-Man. I mean, it's a pretty big lineup, a pretty important lineup, and a lot of the developers that made that stuff started here, or at least some of them did. So, yeah, GB is definitely a very important one in the history of video games, and Namco is an incredibly important company. So, we definitely had to give the relevant score a pretty high rating. So I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. And that left me with an overall total score of 2.25. I enjoyed it, but it's, again, probably not game of the year material. By now, unless Breakout is doing something really crazy, it's just not going to get that high of a score for me. I'd say the highlight of the game is really the color overlays and the weird doorway animation thing, which is the first one that I've seen in a pinball type game. But you might just want to play real pinball instead. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean that sounds fair. That's how we end up coming out of all of our pinball like reviews. I feel like at this point especially, it's like pinball's got to be selling well, and you're not really competing super well with it.
The main thing for me is like it's just got to have good sound effects. If it doesn't feel good to like hit the ball off the bumpers and stuff, it affects way more than just the sound score.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of like the whole thing with pinball.
I know, yeah. Like I don't know, you just got to have that. So I will say the thing that this game does, which makes it a little bit more interesting than some of the other games that do it, this kind of style game, is that since the ball moves so ridiculously fast and you have two paddles, you're almost always like moving the paddles. It's not like a more traditional pinball game where you're just kind of like waiting for the ball to get towards the bottom. And
Right.
sometimes it takes forever to do that. We've seen that before as well. But this one, there's kind of a nice gameplay like activity going on all the time, which is good. So yeah, I like it. And we'll have to see what comes next from good old Namco.
Yeah. I mean, always happy to see stuff from them. And till we get to the crazy stuff that you mentioned, it's going to be super exciting.
Yep, yep.
So, next, let's move on to some honorable mentions. Of course, we have GB, the Gremlin US release, GB by Sega, and GB by Fratelli Bertolino, which was the EU release. And these were all licensed clones of GB. And then we have Shuffleboard by Midway, which is a video game version of the real life game Shuffleboard, but in black and white and with a few sound effects. And as much as Ben wanted to play this one, I said, nah, no, I don't think we should.
Come on, Wes, you don't want to play Shuffleboard?
And what's better than Shuffleboard? Shuffleboard on a 78 video game.
Yeah, okay. This next one was another one that I was debating having us rate because I do think it's kind of cool. I just think the artistic style of it is really cool. It's called Space Ranger by the company Leisure Time Electronics. Came out sometime in '78, and it's a version of Space Invaders. But unlike the usual, like you're a ship or a tank or something shooting up at aliens, in this one you're a boat at the top of the screen and you're shooting down to spear fish below you. It's basically exactly like Space Invaders. Like everything that you can think of, from the sound effects to the little barriers to how many different monsters there are, it's exactly Space Invaders, but just the flip nature of it and the fact that in the original Space Invaders you had like these bunkers that your ship hid behind, but on this one they're big anchors. I don't know. I
Yeah.
just thought the whole artistic style of this one was kind of ridiculous, and I really kind of want people to go check it out because if you want to play Space Invaders, just play this game. I think it might be a more enjoyable time for basically the same game. So I quite liked it, but realistically, there's not too much that we really would say about it in a review,
Right.
with the sound effects and the gameplay being basically identical. Although I did like the graphics. So go check out a video of that one. And then next up, we've got Block Mahjong and IPM Mahjong by IREM and IPM, which is the same company. And we really don't have much info on these. They're apparently Mahjong games. I was just looking up some Mahjong games from '79 for doing research for them, and man, it gets complicated with some of these IREM games because they're not really well documented. So we really don't have too much information on these, not even a month date.
So next up, let's cover something we are a little bit more certain on the dates for. We have the Byte Magazine October issue. We did want to mention that from January up until October, there really weren't any important games in Byte Magazine, but there was a couple cool articles. One of them, which was talking about the advantages of hooking up an organ to a computer and writing musical notation on the computer for it. Which of course caught our eye, and then also featured an article on the first ever touchscreen display, which it makes sense that people would be thinking about that all the way back in '78, but it's crazy to think there was some like rudimentary form of it all the way back then.
Yeah, definitely. Also in this issue, this was like the chess issue, and there's two versions of chess in this magazine. The first one's called Sargon, which was chess for Zilog computers. There was also a TRS-80 version published by the company Haydn. But Sargon is going to be probably the number one best-selling chess program, I think, other than maybe microchess at this time. So it's a really popular version of chess for computers. Obviously, we don't have too much interest in reviewing it unless like it's insanely cool, but I didn't think Sargon was. I did want to say Sargon 2 the sequel has also already been written by this time, but it won't be published till later, so maybe we'll look at it later. But Sargon's a really important chess program for the average person. And then also in the same magazine was Microchess version 1.5 for TRS-80 machines, which is another version of the Peter Jennings Microchess that we've covered before. It did have simple black and white graphics for the pieces, which is pretty cool. But on the TRS-80, I don't trust that it's going to be running that well. So we'll maybe wait for again a little bit better version.
Absolutely. And now let's move on to our last section for today and something completely different. We're talking about Mattel handhelds.
Oh yeah.
First one that we have is an honorable mention called Mind Boggler, which we don't have too much info on, but it basically seems like it's some sort of mastermind type game. So I could see how they could do some cool LED representation with that, but nothing crazy, I'm sure. But what is crazy, or at least really fun, is the next game that I got to cover, Football 2 by Mattel. And one of the reasons that this is really fun, we've mentioned before that Ben's dad has a bunch of these Mattel handheld things, or at least a few of them kicking around. And Football 2 is one of the ones that he has, and that Ben has played when he was a kid, and that I am now borrowing so I can play it for this review. So anytime we get to actually hold and play the original hardware for one of these things we're talking about is always something pretty special. So getting to some of the history for this, there wasn't too much background to how this was made or anything, but we did cover Football in 77, the first one, and this is sort of advertised as the sequel to Football that has it all, which it actually says on, well, it doesn't say that. That rhymes. They should have gone with that, honestly. But it says that it does have it all. And what it means by that is passing, kicking, and running, because there was no passing in the first Football.
Mm-hmm.
And kicking was basically just kickoffs, but I'm pretty sure that's the same with this one as well. And so the biggest changes to how this plays from the original Football is the ability to pass and the monumental ability to run backwards, which just breaks open the whole game for being able to juke out the defense, basically. That might be overstating it, but it changes things when you can move backwards. The kickoff starts off the game, and after that, you can view the status after each play. And when you view the status, it tells you what down it is, how far you are from getting your first down, and gives you a bunch of helpful information. And you also need to press the status button to initiate the start of every play. And during the plays, you can either run as the QB or pass as the QB to your one receiver who moves around. And if the pass is caught, you then run as the receiver. So it's pretty nice that they have that in there, so you're not just always doing running plays as the QB. You have to run across the screen 10 times, though, to get a touchdown, because it's 10 yards for each screen. So that was a little bit weird, but, it worked out all right for this little handheld. And I should mention that since it's one of these sideways LED screens, you can only pass in a straight line in front of you. So you have one receiver who moves around sort of to random spots, maybe away from the defense. I don't know if it actually takes that into account. And then you have to pass straight to it. And a couple people who I was watching were having trouble figuring out how to pass without it getting intercepted. And thankfully, we had a scan of the manual that said the ball will not be intercepted if the defensive person in front of you and all the ones on the way to the receiver have passed the line of scrimmage. So
I don't know. That still seems kind of sketch.
It is sketch because you only have like 2 spaces, so they have to be like right on top of your QB before you pass, basically. But it worked when I tried it, which and as long as there's no other defense, you basically have to have only one defense in that lane to be able to actually pass it. But so that's why a lot of times, and when I first started playing it, just every single pass was intercepted, and I had no idea why. But this also has the interesting option to play Pro 1 and Pro 2 difficulty, but it had like even harder difficulties if you held down the pass or kick button when you turned it on to select the difficulty. And those were basically like Pro 3 and Pro 4 difficulty. All those did were basically up the speed of the defense and that the game was running. So naturally, I stayed on Pro 1 difficulty the whole entire time I played it. In this, though, you could score a touchdown, field goal, or safety. So it does have more ways to score than Atari Football. And each kickoff is either a touchback. So he just, whoever catches sits with the ball there. And then the next play starts from, I forget how the actual rules work, but whatever the yard line is when you do a touchback. Or there's a chance that they will actually catch it and you can run from the kickoff. But it seems like that's randomly decided when the kickoff happens. I'm not too sure. So that's just the basics of it, what it can do. Pretty decent handheld version of emulating football, but obviously because it's using LEDs and only like 3 lanes that you can run in, it's kind of limited on how many things can be on screen. So getting into my ratings for this, for graphics, I gave it a 1 out of 10. Sticking close to Ben's original rating for football in 1977, I believe he gave it a 1.5. Even though it's been a year, these LED flashing lights still look pretty good. I mean, it's weird, but they're just these red lights, but they do a surprising amount of differentiation with a combination of dim, bright, and normal lights, and either flashing or steady. So you know, like your receiver is the dim flashing light, and you're the bright steady light, and the defensive are all normal steady lights, and it works pretty well once you know what each thing is, which is which. My main issue with the visuals, though, is that the defense, when you refresh onto a new screen, doesn't like change positions or like quote unquote respawn. So they're all still grouped around where your quarterback just was, which is a little weird because you just moved into the next 10 yards. But other than that, everything is pretty clear because it's just all these LEDs. Nothing fancy, but there are even buttons that can show you the current score, what down it is, and lots of helpful information, so it's pretty good graphically. For sounds, I gave it a 1.5 out of 10 because this actually adds some sounds that the original football didn't have, I don't believe. It still has the normal beeps for tackles that we had in the first football, but then there's also a charge tune played whenever the kickoff happens, and there's a nice little tune that plays whenever there's a touchdown too. So nothing crazy, but I mean, we always like to see music in games, and especially in handhelds, it's impressive. And then for gameplay, I gave it a 2.5 out of 10, which is what Ben gave it. So I was listening before to make sure I'm not totally skewing these. Because while Football 2 makes some improvements on the original Football, Mattel handheld, it also does some things I don't like. But for the improvements, the passing is super cool and obviously adds a whole new layer to the game. It's no longer just running plays, you can also pass. The status indicator is great, just being able to easily at a glance understand where you are and which side of the 50-yard line you're on, because it actually does indicate which direction you're going, is really nice. And the gameplay is obviously just super fun because you can mash the run button and move backwards now, so you can really juke out the defense. So I like all those added options. But my main gameplay gripe, similar to what I didn't like about the graphics, is that the defense just always stays in that position when you refresh and move to the next 10 yards. So it's like you're waiting to the last minute to throw the ball. The defense is all huddled around your quarterback. Your receiver catches, makes it to the next screen, and instantly surrounded. So it just felt like I could only go like 11 yards at a time, you know? Mm-hmm. I could never really get any big like breakaway throws. I'm pretty sure if you were playing more tactically or less quickly than I was, you could probably like juke out the defense once you get to the next 10 yards and run the whole field. But it's just a weird feeling. It's like they're all waiting for you right when you get to that next screen because their positions never refresh. It just didn't feel very like football to me, I guess.
When you do the play, do you have to choose between run and pass, or do you always like have the option to do both at the same time?
You always have the option, which is really nice.
That's cool.
because there's a couple times you basically just have to press one of the run directions to initiate play. So I would always press backwards, like he's stepping back for the throw. And there was a couple times where the receiver would just never get free, but you see an opening next to you, so you can still do the run. So that was a really fun aspect of it.
Cool.
So moving on to relevance, I gave it a 7 out of 10. I think it's still just as relevant as the original football by Mattel, and it makes awesome and very necessary changes as far as being able to pass and being able to have backwards movement. So it just feels like another iteration of a great handheld that obviously people still have around today. So it's got to be relevant in some sense because of that. And overall, that left me with a 2 out of 10. Football 2 is just another solid Mattel handheld. It really feels like it has its own flavor, unlike some of the Mattel games where hockey just feels like basketball, but kind of different. Like Football 2's got its own thing, and so does football. It really fits in that niche pretty well. And mashing the run buttons, the duck and weave through the defense is just super fun. And even though it can be a bit janky and weird, it still does have that one more play feeling to it.
Nice, man.
Yeah, it's pretty much what I got for Football 2. It was a fun one. So cool to be able to actually play it.
Yeah, definitely. This next one that I wasn't able to play. It's another Mattel handheld, though. This one's called Sub Chase, and I think you would especially like this one, Wes. It is extremely similar to one that I know you enjoyed before called Sonar Search for the Fairchild. So,
oh boy.
Yeah. This is a handheld version of that game, essentially, which is basically like you're a dot on this grid, and there is a moving submarine underneath that you can't see somewhere else on that grid. And depending on where you move, you get these sound effects happening that tell you if you're closer or further from the submarine. And so basically you're trying to track it down as it's moving. And then when you're over it, you can, hit the torpedo button and try to grab it. But unlike Sonar Search, which that was essentially basically all the gameplay, on this one, sometimes the submarine can come out of the water and shoot a torpedo at you, and you have to dodge it.
Oh, yikes.
Which is actually, it's probably my favorite part of the game. Because for a long portion of the game, you might just be just one dot kind of moving around this grid, and then all of a sudden, it's like another dot pops on, and then you get this kind of like fired line of dots towards you, and you feel like, oh man, I really have to it's pretty fast. I mean, you have to have good reaction time. And that's essentially how you fail the game, because I think you can drop as many torpedoes as you want. So as long as you get the submarine before it gets you, you win. I actually think that version of the gameplay is actually really fun. So let me talk a little bit more about what you're actually looking on this handheld. You basically have a 4-way directional pad at the bottom, which is how you move. The center of the screen, it's located in a circle, so to make it look like a sonar, circle thing that would be on a ship. But then you've got like a square grid in the circle, which is where you move. And then it's just red dots for everything. But your ship red dot is slightly bigger and I think brighter than the opponent's dots. As far as what else is on the handheld, basically over top the circular display, you've got these rings similar to, what you would see in a movie when a ship is like looking for a sub or something, and then kind of a decal of 2 little ships, one that's like a destroyer and one that's like a submarine. And then the whole handheld itself is this it's kind of like in this cool blue and black plastic that gives it kind of a pretty sleek look, I think. And there's no difficulty on this one. There's just a power on and off switch. So I guess that's kind of a negative, but I think the overall handheld looks pretty cool. The only part that I don't like about it is that the fire torpedo button is located like on the side of the handheld.
Huh.
Like where, I guess it would be kind of like where a phone's power button would be, which is like, why not just put it like where the D-pad is? I don't know. They haven't figured that out yet. But honestly, I guess there's not too much more to the game. I'll go into the ratings. Let's start out with gameplay because I quite enjoyed the gameplay. The best thing about it is just trying to find that submarine and take it down before it takes you down. So going around trying to locate where it is, it's moving. So it's hard to track it even though you have the sound effects there that speed up the closer you get. You think you'd be right on top of it, but the sound effects actually don't tell you if you're right over it or not. It'll always say the fastest sound effect is always like if you're one square away or on it. So you never quite know, but after throwing down a couple of torpedoes, you should be able to figure it out. So I like that gameplay. It's also fast paced. But then to have the submarine actually be able to pop out of the water and shoot a missile at you, and then it's more of like a dodging based timing reaction game. I really like that as well. It just keeps you on your toes and makes it so you can't like not look away from the screen. So I quite like the gameplay. I give it a 3.25 out of 10. Why did I say 10 like that? It's pretty good. Like I don't know if I would be able to play a game like this for hours. Probably not. But I think it would be fun for 15, 30 minutes for sure. It reminds me of some of the other ones. Like I think you played Armor Battle. Kind of reminds me of that a bit. But
Right.
this one has the extra sound effects and the fact that like something actually can be shot at you. I like that better. And I've also seen it where the submarine will kind of shoot almost multiple torpedoes at you. So you kind of have to dodge one or two of them, which I like a lot. But the other scores aren't so high. So for graphics, I gave it just a 1.25 because it's just a red dot. And sometimes you get a bunch of red dots that light up really quickly because that's the torpedo coming at your ship. But you know, you're doing a lot of imagination work here, which is fine. But it's definitely not like impressive. For sound, I also, despite sound being such an integral part of this game, it gets really annoying on you, which is probably really bad. So I just gave it a 1.25 out of 10. Ultimately, I think the game is still very fun and I would still enjoy playing it. But I don't know, the sound effects just are kind of, they repeat a lot. They're high pitched, they're annoying to me. So I wasn't that impressed with them. I don't know what you could have done. I think trying to find just like the real sonar sound that everybody knows, like that's the sound sonar makes, or that Hollywood has said that it makes, would have been way better. But I don't even know if that was the thing. And then for relevance, I gave it a 5.5 out of 10. I really don't know if this one was that relevant. They didn't make Subchase 2, so I wouldn't say it probably didn't sell that well. It is a Mattel game, though, so anything Mattel is collectible and has been kept for years and years. So I think this is like probably not one of Mattel's more collectible ones, but I don't know for sure, and it doesn't seem to be as popular as the sports games for sure.
Yeah.
And that left me with an overall 2 out of 10. I enjoyed Subchase, but it's just red dots at the end of the day, and unlike maybe some of the sports games like Football 2, I don't think you have as many options of how to play this game. It's basically like you're searching for the sub. It's always the same. I mean, the sub's moving randomly, but I feel like with football, I mean, every single play you have the decision of are you passing, are you throwing? You've got the different difficulties. Like this doesn't really have any of that. You always kind of just have one goal in mind, and there's only one right way to do it, and you just have to kind of be lucky too for part of it. The only thing that breaks up the gameplay is the torpedo when the submarine pops up out of the ocean and shoots it at you, and that's my favorite part of the game. But it doesn't happen all that often, which means when it happens, it's cool. But it's again, it's kind of just a one-dimensional thing. So yeah, overall I enjoyed it, but it wasn't phenomenal.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I like these little like weirdo Mattel handhelds. It makes sense why the
Yeah.
sports ones are the ones people still have and like care about more because they have so much more I don't know, just like mass appeal. But
Mhm.
this is very unique and weird, and I dig it. And you did remind me that the sounds on these handhelds are like brutally loud. I don't know
Yeah.
why. I when I turned on the Football 2 handheld, I like closed my door and like searched for a volume switch because it's just like very piercing.
Yeah. Yep. And Sub Chase you get sounds like all the time. But
Right,
I feel like this style of game is one that I'm really interested in. It just needs to have like some color graphics or something. Like the Fairchild's was better graphically, but it was still wasn't good. Like I
right,
think if a game like that came out on the 2600 or the Astrocade or in arcades, it could be really fun. Like I really like this idea for a game, but with just red dots, it's hard to say that this game's like phenomenal. You know,
right.
I don't know,
Absolutely.
but it is 1978 and it's a handheld, so it's like the worst, back end electronics that you could think of for the
Right, right.
time.
We're happiest with the like lowest level of
Yeah,
performance when it's a handheld in 78. That's like the lowest form right now.
yeah, yeah. And with that, that'll do it for us today, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. It was kind of a big one. I don't know. We talked about the Compucolor II computer, which is kind of a cool computer with full color text and graphics. And then we covered Atari Football, a big football game, GB, Namco's first game, Football 2, and Subchase by Mattel, which are obviously important Mattel handhelds. So, we're getting stuff done.
Absolutely. And if you want to take a look back at all the stuff we've done before, make sure to check out our website. We're always updating that with information. You can listen to the podcast there. You can see where our sources are. There's so much you can look at there. Also, make sure to follow us on Twitter, where we'll do announcements when our episodes are going up or if there's not going to be an episode for the week. And make sure to send us an email if you have any questions.
And with that, we'll catch you next time.
See y'all next time.